I didn't realize I was disappearing until a stranger asked me a question that felt uncomfortably personal. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't emotional, it was just quiet. Before we begin, please support MindShift Stories by subscribing, liking the video, and leaving a comment. Your support helps us continue sharing meaningful stories with the world. I used to think my life was fine. Not great, not terrible, just fine. That word became my default answer to everything. How's work? Fine. How are you holding up? Fine. I said it so often that I stopped checking whether it was true. Most days followed the same pattern. Wake up before my alarm because my mind was already racing. Sit in traffic, staring at red lights, feeling oddly tired before the day even started. Work 8 hours, sometimes more, answering emails that felt urgent but never meaningful. Come home, scroll on my phone, eat whatever was easiest, sleep, repeat. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. I had a job, I paid my bills, I wasn't in crisis. And because of that, I believed I had no right to feel the heaviness I carried around. So I didn't question it. I just adjusted to it. I told myself this was adulthood, responsibility, reality. Still, there was this quiet pressure in my chest that never fully went away. Not anxiety exactly, more like a constant tension, as if I was always bracing for something I couldn't name. I remember thinking, maybe everyone feels like this and just doesn't talk about it. That belief became my comfort zone. One evening after work, I stopped at a small grocery store near my apartment. It wasn't part of my routine, which already felt strange. I walked the aisles without really looking, tossing things into my basket based on habit rather than hunger. At the checkout counter, the cashier was an older man. Gray hair, calm voice, nothing remarkable at first. He scanned my items slowly, deliberately, like he wasn't in a rush to be anywhere else. When he finished, instead of saying the usual, "Have a good night," he looked at me and asked, "Long day?" I nodded. "Yeah, same as always." He paused, still holding the receipt. Then he asked something I didn't expect. "Do you like the life you're living?" The question landed heavier than it should have. It wasn't invasive, not really, but it felt like someone had gently knocked on a door I kept locked. I laughed awkwardly. I guess so. He studied my face for a second, not in a judgmental way, just curious. Then he handed me the receipt and said, "That wasn't an answer." I walked out of the store feeling unsettled, not because of what he said, but because of how quickly I tried to dodge it. That night, I couldn't sleep. The question kept replaying in my head. Do you like the life you're living? I realized I'd never actually asked myself that. I measured my life by survival, not satisfaction. As long as nothing was falling apart, I assumed everything was fine. Lying in the dark, I started noticing things I'd ignored for years. How often I said yes when I wanted to say no. How rarely I felt present. How my inner dialogue was mostly critical, impatient, dismissive. I remember thinking, if nothing changes, this is it. And that thought scared me more than any crisis ever had. Still, fear alone wasn't enough to change anything. I woke up the next morning and went right back into my routine. That's what routines do. They protect you from uncomfortable questions. But something had shifted. A small crack had formed. Over the next few weeks, I became hyper-aware of my reactions. Tiny moments started standing out. The irritation I felt when my phone rang. The relief I felt when plans got canceled. The way Sundays felt heavy instead of restful. One afternoon at work, a coworker asked me if I wanted to join a new project. Normally, I would have agreed automatically. Instead, I hesitated. "I'll think about it," I said. That pause felt strange, almost dangerous. Later, sitting at my desk, I realized why it felt so uncomfortable. I had built my identity around being agreeable, reliable, easy. Saying yes was how I felt safe. Saying no felt like risking rejection. That's when it hit me. I wasn't exhausted because life was hard. I was exhausted because I was constantly negotiating against myself. The real turning point came on a random Tuesday night. Nothing dramatic happened, no breakdown, no big argument, just a moment of clarity that felt both obvious and unsettling. I was brushing my teeth, staring at my reflection when a thought crossed my mind. What if the problem isn't my circumstances, but the way I'm interpreting them? I remember standing there, toothbrush in my mouth, realizing how much of my suffering came from assumptions I never questioned. I assumed I had to earn rest. I assumed my worth came from productivity. I assumed discomfort meant danger. I assumed other people's expectations mattered more than my own limits. None of those beliefs were facts. They were habits. And habits, unlike circumstances, could change. That realization didn't feel empowering at first. It felt terrifying, because if my mindset was part of the problem, then it was also part of the responsibility. But for the first time in a long while, I felt something close to hope. I didn't overhaul my life overnight. There was no dramatic reinvention. The shift happened in small, almost invisible ways. I started paying attention to my inner language. When I caught myself thinking, I have to do this, I'd pause and ask, do I really, or am I choosing to? Sometimes the answer didn't change my action, but it changed how I felt about it. I began setting small boundaries, not announcements, just quiet decisions. Leaving work on time, saying not today without explaining myself, letting emails wait. At first, guilt followed every boundary. I remember thinking, this feels selfish. But then I noticed something surprising. Nothing bad happened. The world didn't collapse. People adjusted. Some of them didn't even notice. The tension in my chest started to loosen. The biggest change wasn't external. It was how I related to my own thoughts. Before, I treated every negative thought like a warning sign. If I felt tired, I assumed something was wrong. If I felt bored, I judged myself for being ungrateful. Now, I started seeing thoughts as information, not commands. Feeling drained didn't mean I was failing. Feeling restless didn't mean I was broken. Feeling unhappy didn't mean I was ungrateful. It meant I was human. That shift alone changed everything. Months later, I went back to the same grocery store. The same cashier was there. When he saw me, he smiled. "Hey," he said, "you look lighter." I laughed. "Funny you say that." He raised an eyebrow. "Did you ever answer my question?" I thought about it for a moment. I said, "I'm learning to." He nodded like that was enough. Looking back, I don't think my life was ever in danger in the obvious sense, but I was slowly disconnecting from myself. I was surviving instead of participating. The mindset shift that saved my life wasn't about positivity or motivation. It was about responsibility, not the heavy kind, but the honest kind. Taking responsibility for how I interpret my experiences, for the boundaries I ignore, for the stories I tell myself about who I am and what I deserve. That awareness didn't fix everything, but it gave me choice, and choice is powerful. Now, when people ask me how I'm doing, I pause before answering. Sometimes I still say fine, but now I know what that means. And when it's not true, I don't rush to hide it, from them or from myself. Because the quiet truth I learned is this: you don't need a life-altering event to change your life. Sometimes, all it takes is the courage to question a belief you've been living by without realizing it. And the most important question isn't, what's wrong with my life? It's this: what if the way I see my life is the one thing I can finally choose to change?